Something is happening around the world, and particularly right now in the United States, that is both shocking and disturbing. This being reported by LifeSite, and I'm sure there's others that are reporting as well, but a number of days ago, President Obama basically said that he wants all public school systems now to respect transgenders to the point to where if they want to use the bathroom of their stated sex, meaning if they are a girl and they believe they're a boy, they can go in the boys' bathroom and vice versa. And that goes for showers as well. Let me just read a little bit from the article. So the Obama administration has issued a guidance to all public schools telling them to allow students of either biological sex to use the showers, locker rooms, and restrooms and stay in the same hotel rooms during field trips designated for the opposite sex or risk losing federal funding. And they're doing all this all in the name of the separation of church and state, which frankly has never existed, but it's always been a one-way separation. In other words, the state was never to interfere with the church, but that has never been the case the other way around. In fact, in God we trust is written on our coins. The Pledge of Allegiance is one nation under God. Up until the early 60s, we had both prayer and Bible study in the public school system, and it dates back hundreds of years. Frankly, our history has been saturated with the church infiltrating any state institution that there might be. But there is no history of the state doing this type of infiltration. It's never been heard of nor seen of. In fact, that's what the Founding Fathers, and there's many letters out there from some of the Founding Fathers, that indicates that they would never sign anything that allowed the state to in any way usurp authority over the church. But as we know, if at this point in time we have these different gay, lesbian, and transvestite organizations are daily sending letters out trying to tell churches what they can and cannot preach from their pulpit, and that they would lose their tax-exempt status if in fact they did. Again, this is the state using its power of taxation to control the church, which is something that the Founding Fathers absolutely did not want to be done. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what this country stands for. And there's something else that they are also, in fact, the public is using it, that you might want to pay attention to, and that is this crazy legislation that seems to be something good, but in fact has turned out to be something very bad. And that is the right to work. Now, what the right to work is, and if you live in a right to work state, that simply gives the employer or the person working for the employer the ability to walk away from their job at a moment's notice just by rendering their resignation or telling the person who works for the company that we don't need you anymore. So, in fact, if you were to take a stand against homosexual weddings or marriage or, say, abortion or transgender bathrooms, and your employer caught wind of you doing this and did not want to be identified as a hater of the gay, lesbian, transgender lifestyle, all they would have to do is just tell you, you know what, we no longer need your services here, and fire you, and in 24 hours or whatever the case may be, you'd be out of a job. And if you live in a state in which that is enforced and you have no union or whatever the case may be, and there's probably coming a time that even the unions are going to back this type of lifestyle, that you'd simply be out of a job for standing up against something that you believe is wrong as far as the Bible is concerned. We all know about what happened to the father of the Duck Dynasty Empire. Phil happened to be being interviewed by an individual, and he stated his views regarding the gay, lesbian, transvestite lifestyle as being sinful according to the Bible, and that it was not mandated by God, and the only correct marriage or lifestyle that God intended for was with a man and a woman. Well, he was promptly called before the bureaucrats at the, I believe it's AMC or whatever the company is that he worked for, and they promptly fired him. Well, thankfully, because he was a popular figure and he had a vast moral following, that even the sponsors that stood behind this decision were being boycotted, and and pressure was being put on them. And it was so intense that not only did the sponsors have to review and reverse their decision, but also AMC had to do the same thing. And you also see Chick-fil-A, which is a very respected Christian business, and also Hobby Lobby. They've both stood firm in the refusal to bow to the government. And now our latest fight is the people of North Carolina. You know, these people need to be prayed for that they'll defeat this, but they need more than that. They need your backing, whether it be monetarily or whatever the case may be. We Christians need to stand up and fight as hard and as long as we have to in order to reverse this ridiculous trend that is going on at this time. Because frankly, if North Carolina falls, the domino is going to hit every other state. And it's just a matter of time before it gets to your state. And you know, the bottom line is if the Obama administration did not feel that they could win this victory and that momentum was on their side, he would have never stood up and said what he has said so far, and been as bold to try to force every public school in the nation to do so, to follow this letter of intent. They call it a letter of guidance, but really it's a letter of being forced through taxation and through funding that each school district in the United States is going to have to fall in line. And this is just another example of using federal funding to control the Christian and principles of our schools, what's left of them. You know, they've already tried to eliminate, and been successful at it, of getting prayer and Bible study out of the school system, removing the Ten Commandments from our courthouses, and reducing us to a godless society such as any other out there. But going on with the letter, it says, a joint letter from the Departments of Education and Justice released Friday morning states that students who identify as transgender must be allowed to use the private facilities that match their gender identity. The letter clarified that schools should not require a medical diagnosis or treatment before accepting a student's transgender self-identification. The moment a child's parent or guardian says the child identifies as a member of the opposite sex, the school must recognize that and act accordingly as a condition of receiving federal funds, the 8-page letter says. And going on, it says, a school also cannot require a transgender student to use separate facilities, although it may choose to allow students who object to the new arrangement to use an individual restrooms or changing facilities. The guidance also states that members of one biological sex must be allowed to stay overnight in the same rooms or dormitories as members of the opposite sex, if the former identify as transgender. A school must allow transgender students to access housing consistent with their gender identity and may not require transgender students to stay in single occupancy accommodations or to disclose personal information when not required of other students, the letter says. So if you make special arrangements or even build a separate bathroom, you can't do that. You must allow the person who identifies themselves as someone of the opposite sex to be able to go into facilities, that includes locker rooms and showers, and to take showers in the shower facilities of the opposite sex without being harassed or penalized. And if you don't do that, you'll lose your funding. Now get this, in a blog post announcing the new guidelines, the letter's authors say their recommendations show that equality for transgender students is not only required by law, but achievable through common sense, oh my goodness, approaches that foster safety and a positive learning environment for all students. Well, somebody's lost all common sense. There's absolutely no way that common sense can be put into a sentence where I would have to allow my daughter or my son to shower alongside a person who is of the opposite sex but claims to be of that sex. Somebody ought to be asking the President of the United States if he will be forcing the school that his two daughters go to allow students who claim to be of the opposite gender to both go into the bathroom where their daughters will frequent and also shower next to them during athletic or gym time. Certainly, I'm sure that the President's daughters go to a private school that is not funded by the state in any way. But if in fact they are in any way receiving any type of funding from the federal government, he will need to send a letter to his daughter's school as well and force them or to have them lose funding. But I don't see that happening. But it'd be nice for somebody who has the power to do so to confront the president on this issue. Now here's their justification. Officials say the president's approach is justified under Title IX, a 1972 law designed to eliminate chauvinistic sexual discrimination. The Obama administration has decided this encompasses discrimination based on a student's gender identity, although the wording of the law contains no such provision. Penny Nance, CEO and president of Concerned Women for America, says under the proposal, schools may be forced to violate the privacy of other students and perhaps even create trauma for the very kids Obama pretends to protect. The left always uses children to accomplish its goals of social reengineering. The adults closest to these children should decide what's best for all the children in the school, Nance said. Well, I guess the problem is that we can either be leaders in our community and stand up and step on this particular problem and lead others to do the same, or we can continue to be the silent majority that basically allows big government to go beyond their boundaries that the founding fathers basically have said that this simply can't happen. And, you know, I refuse to allow this to happen. I'm going to speak up about it. And even though I believe we're living in the last days, and certainly this is definitely a specific sign that the tribulation period is near and that a pending rapture will happen for it, we Christians are still here on this earth and we still need to take a stand where that's possible. And certainly taking a stand may be something that could affect your job status. And certainly if you are in a state that works as at will, and I said earlier that it was right to work, but I meant at will, your employer may try to hold that over your head to fire you, or whatever the case may be, saying that your stated public biases toward gays, lesbians, and transgenders is not in keeping with their company, and for that reason they have the ability to let you go at any time for any reason. But the truth of the matter is they're not allowed to fire you for your religious convictions. And on top of that, of course, race, gender, age, disability, and the like. But certainly we need to take a collective stand against this particular sin and the direction that our federal government is taking. We need to reverse this trend that is destroying our country. And certainly if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. You know, 150,000 people die every single day. The Bible says that the vast majority will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Come to the Lord today before it's everlasting too late. And you Christians, you know that you're going to have friends and loved ones who are going to go through the tribulation period. I would encourage you to get a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. It is now written in 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese, soon to be German. And I'm looking in also to add 3 more languages, Russian, French, and Arabic. And if you know somebody who can write and speak and translate any of these 3 languages and would like to do something for the Lord as a donation and translate, please have them get a hold of me as soon as possible. Now there's 2 versions that I have right now. The free version you can download. The other version you can get as a paperback. And you can go to the description section at the bottom of this video to find out which link you need to follow in order to get either of the choices. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.